With 30 years in the UFC business, Dana White made maximum effort to regulate the rules, make a martial arts spectacle, and bring it closer to people as a real sport. However, being a successful businessman and multimillionaire who has been in controversial situations for years means his actions won't always delight the community. And this leads to stories like these. We start with the UFC Reebok deal, which was a hard pill to swallow for the fighters and therefore the fans. Their 6-year partnership was officially announced in 2015. This act eliminated any sponsors UFC fighters had and limited them to Reebok only. It was obvious that the UFC would be the only one to benefit from this move. Or if you ask Dana, they won't be making any money from it.
UFC won't make a dime off this. Not one penny.
Yeah, right. As if he would contract something that would not benefit the company. This gave the promotion a more professional look, but on the other hand, it gave them more control over the livelihood of its fighters and took the food off their tables. For years, White was crucified and abused by questions from fans. When will the fighters be able to have their sponsors back? The fighters immediately expressed their displeasure on social networks, but of course, that didn't change anything because Dana is quite greedy and stubborn about his views.
Cocaine isn't cheap. It's expensive. Gotta make money.
Donald Cerrone, for example, reported that he would lose $60,000 per fight in income because of this. So, the UFC will not earn anything, but this deal will cost the fighters thousands. Sounds like logic has left the conversation. However, Dana was not always logical about his decisions. In 2019, he introduced the BMF belt for the fight between Nate Diaz and Jorge Masvidal. At first, this seemed like a fun idea, but on closer inspection, not really. Traditional championship titles were a dream come true only for the best fighters in the world in their respective divisions. Consequently, this belt only turned out to be a gimmick. Only big names get a chance for the belt. Those with back-to-back losses against top fighters and those who could not reach the real championship. Given the name of this belt, it's ironic that it's actually a consolation prize. It turns promotion into showbiz and takes away meaningful competition. Regardless, Dana is quite excited about promoting his weirdest UFC title. Speaking of Dana's tendency to promote weird and controversial products, Mr. White was inspired by the Russians' Power Slap League, so he decided to introduce his own in 2022.
Power Slap. Oh,
I love it. I love it.
He says that in 17 months, this product has received as many as 7 billion views. This is not surprising, because we live in a time where all sorts of nonsense gets an abnormal number of views. The irony is that, for years, White tried to turn cage fighting into a noble sport, convincing people that it is not what it seems. Then, 3 decades later, he introduces a league where people slap each other to the point of unconsciousness and says that it will be bigger than the UFC. Dr. Gregory Oshanik, medical director of the Brain Injury Association of America, gave a great explanation. A sport is a contest of athleticism or skill. This is merely your physiological ability to withstand blunt force trauma to the head. It's like seeing how many times somebody can run into a brick wall. It's funny how not all UFC fighters had the courage to express their discontent about this, sport. And considering that Dana rules them with an iron fist, it's hard to figure out who actually likes it and who doesn't.
What do you think of Power Slap?
I think it's amazing, man. What Hunter Campbell and Dana White have done with Power Slap is one of the most amazing spectacles I've ever seen.
What do you think of Power Slap?
I don't like it.
Okay. What do you think of Power Slap?
It's fun. It's fun to watch. It's good to watch on if nothing else to watch.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
What do you think of Power Slap?
I think it's ridiculous. If you really want to give yourself brain damage, go ahead. I'm not going to stop you.
But this noble and highly intelligent sport is not the only strange thing from 2022. The UFC imposed a flag ban due to the war between Russia and Ukraine. True, the ban was lifted in 2023, but why set it in the first place? This did not sit well with the fighters, and when the fighters are not happy, neither are the fans. Fans think that bringing in flags adds an emotional layer to the fights and gives the fighters pride points. After all, it is a way for promotion to go worldwide. There is no doubt that White was forced from above to accept this ban, but given that he is difficult to manipulate, it was rather weird. Well, good thing he changed his mind. Surely he would bring back a lot of fans if he brought back the old UFC gloves. In 2024, he introduced new gloves to neutralize eye pokes. Many expressed dissatisfaction, especially when Trevor Whitman proposed his own model that even Rogan said was better than the UFC's. The coach had a great idea, but he couldn't agree with the UFC. Yeah, what a wonder. Trevor wasn't happy with the negotiations with the promotion, so they parted ways. The UFC wanted to own the patent, and he rightly didn't want to give it up. You know Dana, he only wants things over which he will have 100% control. However, even if we turn a blind eye to the dissatisfaction with the gloves that Dana ignored, he gladly accepted that they would return at UFC 309. Why? Because people complained. And those people are Jon Jones. He literally brought back the gloves at the event, where he returned the biggest eye poker in the fight business. Jon Jones noted that he found them uncomfortable, stating they felt restrictive and did not conform well to his hand shape. He mentioned feeling stressed about using them during fight week due to their awkward fit. After UFC 309, Dana returned them again for the next event. However, White bending to Jon's will is nothing new, and fans being infuriated because of it is the least of his concerns.
Jon Jones has never lost. It's just a whole nother level. Jon Jones is the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world and the greatest fighter ever. And listen to me, I'm not defending Jon Jones.
We've spent the entire year of 2024 listening to Dana White glazing over Jon Jones. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion, but anyone who says they didn't go crazy by hearing Jon Jones is the pound-for-pound #1 every day
It's Jon Jones. Jon Jones. Jon Jones. Or Jon Jones.
isn't being honest with themselves. The man waged wars against reporters who dared to stand up to him. Dana, we get it, you love him, but stop putting him where he doesn't belong.
Holy shit. And he's the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world. Wow.
The pound-for-pound fighter debate has nothing to do with a GOAT conversation. Pound-for-pound rankings compare fighters regardless of their weight class. The list is based on overall skills and recent accomplishments, quality of opponents, activity, and dominance. Subjective factors such as money-making ability and popularity are more or less included. Whatever we think of Jon Jones, he's the best of all time, period. But putting him at the top of the pound-for-pound rankings while he's resting is absurd, especially when Makhachev, Pereira, and Topuria are finishing opponents and spectacularly defending titles. Okay, so he beat Stipe and climbed to second place. We'll ignore the fact that he's still ahead of Pereira, but after beating a senior citizen, he's still not first, and it makes Dana White mad. Now, he wants a deal with Mark Zuckerberg to have AI create the pound-for-pound rankings in the future. Well, if artificial intelligence is really as intelligent as advertised, it's unlikely that it will put Jon in the first place. While some fighters have Dana White privileges, others are fired for their social media comments. In 2011, Miguel Torres tweeted, "If a van was called a surprise van, more women wouldn't mind going for rides in them." Miguel, who found this funny, came to his senses and changed the post to, "If a windowless van was called a surprise van, more people wouldn't mind going for rides in them. Everyone likes surprises." Unfortunately, he realized too late that this could be offensive, and as a result, he was released from the promotion by the president. We have a million reasons why this would be really offensive, but a man can make a mistake. Turns out Miguel actually shared the quote from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. However, it bothered Dana too much. The question is, what would he do if one of the UFC superstars did the same?
It was just a joke. It's not a funny joke to me. It's just not something you tweet. If that's your sense of humor, keep it at home around you and your buddies and keep it to yourself. It's not something that you put out on Twitter.
In 2015, we had the same problem, but from a different angle. After the victory, Yoel Romero called people to return to Jesus Christ. It was one of the unique post-fight interviews, especially because, at first, we barely understood what he wanted to say. After his appeal to people to return to true values, he received positive feedback and earned many fans. The same cannot be said for Dana White, though, who stated the following.
You just won the biggest fight of your career. America doesn't want to hear your thoughts on Jesus, and keep that stuff at home. Religion, politics, all that stuff. When you're out there fighting and you're being interviewed, they want to hear about the fight. Love Jesus all you want. Just don't have to do it publicly.
Did he just say to leave politics at home? That would make sense if he hadn't been bragging about how he lost a lot of fans because of his friendship with Donald Trump. We all know how much Donald helped him build the UFC, and Dana is infinitely grateful for that. That's one good thing about him. He's a ride-or-die guy for people who did him good in difficult times. True, he lost a lot of fans because he supported Trump, but they're mostly those who aren't on Donald's side. However, the problem here is that Dana contradicts himself for the umpteenth time, which is one of the main reasons why he draws the ire of fans. Fighters are not allowed to express their religious and political affiliations, and then he brags about his. So, let's think back to a few similar situations.
When are we gonna see women in the UFC, man?
Never.
Anytime soon? Never?
Never.
Ronda Rousey.
Greatest athlete I've ever worked with.
Wow.
Women's fighting is where it is today because of her. The greatest athlete I've ever worked with. Never.
Anytime soon?
Wow.
I fucking guarantee you this. You ain't gonna see Jake Paul calling Anderson Silva out. That I fucking promise you.
Anderson Silva and Jake Paul.
I don't care about that. I don't care.
Wow.
Kimbo sucks. Kimbo Slice sucks, like I've said now for the last few months.
What's up, Kimbo? Wow.
The thing that Dana White has been accused of the most, and continues to be, is the way he treats fighters. This includes fighter health concerns and their payment. In August 2023, over 1,200 professional fighters filed a class action lawsuit against the UFC, seeking $1.6 billion. Former employees say the UFC used its market power to acquire or block rival promoters and used exclusive contracts to keep fighters within the UFC. As for health, a U.S. federal review says the UFC might not be meeting all the criteria as far as fighters' safety is concerned. They check most of the boxes, yes, but they are missing out in terms of insurance. But luckily for them, there's Dana White, who is working diligently to make the fighters' future brighter.
We're always looking into making things better, safer, and whatever for the fighters. I mean, I don't know about health care forever. I mean, does anybody have a job where they get health care forever when they leave? I mean, that's pretty fucking crazy, but I don't think anybody does it.
It's not really strange that he doesn't take care of some lesser-known fighters. In fact, Dana doesn't care if you are the biggest UFC superstar ever if you don't dance to his music. And no one waged war with him like Francis Ngannou, who was released in 2023. The man who made only $600,000 after defending his heavyweight title in dominant fashion against Cyril Gane. When he sat down with the UFC people to make an agreement, it was clear that a mutually satisfactory agreement would not be reached. The best they could do was give him 3 more big money fights under the pretense that he would become the highest paid heavyweight of all time. But finances were not the problem here. It was Ngannou's desire for freedom. Francis says that according to their contract, he would not be an independent contractor and that with his signature, he would give them all the power, and he has seen firsthand how they function when that power is given to them. Dana said that Francis was asking for the impossible, and those impossible demands included health insurance, a license for sponsorships outside the UFC for everyone, and the ability to box outside the promotion. Ngannou didn't just stand up for himself, but for all the other fighters. He couldn't even dream that after a successful UFC career, he would find himself on the negative side of White and the crossroads with the promotion. Many said that he fumbled the bag, and his pride would be the end of him. But Francis, with a lot of patience, proved the world wrong. He signed a great contract with the PFL, where he earned $2 million in his first fight. In addition, boxing against Tyson Fury, he earned $10 million. Dana White, of course, tried to degrade his achievements and also Francis as a person. President quickly switched his jersey from this.
Francis Ngannou has the world record for the most powerful punch. His punch is the equivalent to 96 horsepower, which is equal to getting hit by a Ford Escort going as fast as it can. Holy shit.
To this.
I didn't like Francis as a person. Wasn't a guy I wanted to do business with. Francis isn't a good guy. He plays the good guy. I don't understand the language, and so he seems like he's a nice guy. He's not. Believe me, I have no sleepless nights over Francis leaving.
But Francis is not the only champion who has gone through this. Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson, despite his perfect performances at flyweight, suffered a great injustice. His fault was that he was so dominant that it bordered on boring. That, and the fact that he did not want to accept the ideas that the UFC imposed on him. They wanted him to change and start promoting fights better, but Mighty refused to be a fake character for the sake of promotion. They wanted him to fight TJ Dillashaw, who would skip the line at flyweight, and Demetrius wanted to defend the title against someone who deserved it. That's how a champion should think, right? Of course, there was also a dispute about finances.
Sean Shelby, he called me, he says, hey, we want you to fight TJ Dillashaw. I was like, okay, pay me $1 million. We'll make it happen.
You gonna fight TJ?
Yeah, we'll make it happen. Because I can't give you what you don't bring in. I was like, okay, fair enough. Okay, I understand that. And then Matt said, okay, well, we'll fight TJ, but here's a stipulation we want. If TJ doesn't make weight, which we knew he could not make 125, if he doesn't make 125, we fight for his belt. They're like, oh, no, we can't do that. And I'm like, I have no leverage here.
Right.
Like, what's
in it for you?
What's in it for me? Like, same pay, no more money. What's in it for me? And they're like, well, we're just gonna close the division. They're like, close the motherfucking division.
He's a partner in the pay-per-view. Let's see what your pay-per-view does. You're a partner, and
see what you make. Listen, you can't be in a position where you're like, I want $2 million. Fuck you. I don't care what you make.
You don't like the way we pay our fighters? Too fucking bad.
Dana couldn't wait to replace him with a new champion who will work as the promotion says. But that's not all, because the peak of disrespect happened when the UFC contracted the worst transfer in the history of MMA sport in 2018. They replaced Demetrious Johnson with Ben Askren, a man who hated Dana White for years and vice versa. The president literally traded away the best fighter on the roster to bring in a man he doesn't like at all. But the joke is on him, because Demetrious continued to shine even in one championship. When he emotionally said goodbye to sports in 2024, Dana White spoke again and shared another one of his nonsense.
If you go back to when he was here, I was defending him from the fans, you know? So who's defended Demetrious Johnson more than me? Yeah, no, good for him. You know, incredible career he had, and yeah, I've never had a problem with Demetrious Johnson.
Let's touch on another incident from 2022, but this one has nothing to do with the UFC. It's more like Dana White's private problem that got leaked and got bad feedback from the public. He and his wife Ann were celebrating New Year's Eve in Mexico, but that celebration quickly turned into a physical confrontation. A few slaps here, a few slaps there, and unfortunately for White, everything was recorded by the camera. Dana has been vocal about violence against women for many years, and ironically, he found himself in just such a situation. People couldn't help but wonder what happens in private if this happens in public. After all, this was one of the rare cases where he admitted a mistake and accepted responsibility for his actions. He knew what would await him the first time he stood in front of the cameras.
On this media day with the athletes, the focus is on them. These guys have trained hard and got ready for this fight. What happened on New Year's Eve is mine, my mistake, not theirs. There's no defense for this, and people should not be defending me over this thing, no matter what. All the criticism that I have received this week is 100% warranted and will receive in the future.
Whatever he did, it would usually cause mixed emotions. Of course, he did many good things that are not mentioned much or often.
I need to thank him because he gave me a home for a year. You know, he gave me money on the side. That secured me being able to have a place to live for the next year.
But he also did a lot of things that weren't to the taste of the MMA community.
For me, the biggest benefit is not having to work for Dana White. That guy's a freaking scumbag.
I don't give a f.
If you're hungry for more fascinating stories from the world of MMA, check out our next video.